to ParaWomen Radio. I'm Amy. It's day 17 of LIVEmas. I can't believe I made it 17 days. I was looking at our past lives that we did, and we've done 17, obviously, or 16. Today's day 17. We covered the Lori Vallow case. We covered the Watts case a number of times. We did, there was a dramatic standoff crisis in California. We've done the Sarah Boone case. We did the Gabby Petito case. We did Sarah Boone a number of times. We did Gypsy Rose and Eugenia Cooney. We did Alien Invasion, a paranormal podcast. There was a man who was interviewed by an alien in the CIA. She was wearing an ill-fitting wig, and it was just ridiculous. And I shared my UFO story. 2 days we did the Shonda Vander Ark trial. Unbelievable. That was the Michigan woman who tortured her 15-year-old son to death. And today we're going back into the paranormal realm. I like to talk about Bigfoot. I don't know if you are interested in Bigfoot, but I'm very interested in Bigfoot. I did a paranormal podcast, ParaWomen Radio, for 3 years. So we're going back into the archives of the ParaWomen podcast. This was originally aired on July 8th of 2007. Yes, my friends. I've been doing this show that long. I interview women doing the unusual. The interviewee of this show was Lisa Sheil. She was the author of Backyard Bigfoot and Strange Michigan, or Weird Michigan. Don't remember which one. I am from Michigan. When I did this, I was in Michigan. I'm in Florida right now. 2 years ago, I did an interview of a woman that investigates Bigfoot or the skunk ape in Florida. So I will put the link to that interview if you're interested in Bigfoot. Today we're coming from Facebook. Hi, Facebook. Instagram, or not Instagram, not anymore, sorry. YouTube and X. Hi, YouTube and X. So we're going to go right into the interview. I'll be in the chat if you have any questions. If you could give this live a thumbs up, it helps us dance out into the algorithm, bring more people back to the party. Just a free way to help us out, and it's really appreciated. And if you like my content, please consider subscribing. I'd love to have you here. Let me get the stage ready. Okay, here we go. ParaWomen Radio, we're diving into the vaults of the ParaWomen Radio show archives. And this is Lisa Sheil and Backyard Bigfoot.
We have on tonight's show, and I don't know if I'm going to say her name right. When I get her on here, I'll see if it's the correct name, but her name is Lisa Sheil, or Sheil, which one it is. But she's the author of Backyard Bigfoot, and she's also going to be co-authoring the sequel of Weird Michigan entitled Strange Michigan. So I'm really excited to have her. As you know, Haunted Hillsdale, Shannon's a part of Haunted Hillsdale. We are embarking on a Bigfoot expedition because there have been some sightings around Hillsdale County, Michigan, that of some Bigfoot, not recent ones, but they were in the past. So we're going to kind of head out there and see what we can't find. Let's see if we can get Lisa on the line with us. Hi, Lisa.
Hello.
Lisa, is that you?
Yes. Can you hear me?
This is Amy. Yep, we can hear you. This is Amy and Shannon.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
Lisa, how do you say your last name?
Sheil.
Sheil. Okay, I did say it right. Is there an echo?
I don't hear anything.
Okay, I'm just hearing an echo on my phone. So I was telling the listeners that you are the author of Backyard Bigfoot.
That's right.
And that you have an exciting new project coming up where you're going to be co-authoring the sequel to Weird Michigan entitled Strange Michigan.
That's right.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Doing it with Linda Godfrey, who wrote Weird Michigan. So we're going to have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, I was reading on your blog that you had a meeting of the minds and that she is actually interested in werewolves. So the werewolf lady and the Bigfoot lady are getting together to write a book.
That's right. That's what Linda said when we met. She said it was Bigfoot woman meets werewolf lady.
That's great.
And now she says forever afterward we're going to be known as Bigfoot woman and werewolf lady.
Yep, probably so. So tell us about your book, Bigfoot, Backyard Bigfoot. How did that come about?
Well, I've been interested in Bigfoot for a long time, but about 6 years ago I started researching it intensively. I was going to write a novel at that point, which I did do. And then strange things started happening to me. And one of them being stick signs, which is something I write about in the book. There's a whole chapter about that. I started finding these sticks laid out in distinctly unnatural formations, geometric formations and things like that. And at first I didn't think it was Bigfoot related, but as time went on, I found some footprints and other things like that that led me to the conclusion that it was Bigfoot related. And that's kind of the crux of the book, is the stick signs.
The stick signs? The stick signs, are they wired together with an incline, or is it just sticks laid out?
They're just laid out. They do sometimes have things other than sticks in them, like feathers and rocks, old dog bones sometimes.
Oh.
So they're very distinctive. They stick out when you're walking around. If you walk through the same area every day, you know what's there and what's not supposed to be there, and then these will pop right out at you.
Now, why do they do that?
Why do they pop out at you?
No, why are they laying out sticks? Is it
I suspect it's some sort of communication. I don't know what we're saying to each other, but I have made my own signs and gotten responses.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's happened a number of times.
So you could be telling them weird things that you don't even know.
I have no idea what we're saying.
That's funny. Okay.
But I must not be getting them mad, because I think if they were going to get mad, they would have done it already.
That was a question that Shannon and I were talking about for the interview, and we were wondering, are Bigfoot, are they angry creatures, or are they kind of friendly? Or not? I know they're not friendly, but are they kind of like docile and just want to be left alone, or are they aggressive?
Well, I think they're a lot like people in that, some of them are nice, some of them are mean. I mean, that's the way most animals are. They have their own personalities. They're not all sweet and loving and not all mean and nasty. They run the gamut, all different sorts of them.
That's what I said to Shannon.
Yes, that's exactly what she said.
You were right.
And so I noticed in the book you talk about mane braiding as well.
Right. That is with my horses. This is something that's been seen in other places around the world, like especially in Russia. There was a book that talked about horses' manes getting braided overnight. And in fact, there's a story of a Bigfoot researcher who staked out a barn and said that he saw a Bigfoot come in and braid the horses' manes. I haven't seen the Bigfoot braiding my horse's manes yet, but it happens in the same places where I have found footprints and stick signs and everything. And in fact, when I find the mane braids, I will usually find some stick signs laying around too. And these mane braids are very complicated. They're not like tangles. If you see a picture of them, there's some pictures in the book and there's some pictures on my website. they're very intricate, and there are several locks of hair that are twisted and wound together and looped up inside to finish it off, and they're very hard to undo. In fact, on my website, I have a video of me undoing one so you can see how complicated they are.
What is the address of your website?
I have upbigfoot.com, which is my main research website, and I also have my blog, which is bigfootquest.com.
Okay, and I think it was in your blog that I did see a picture of the main braiding.
Right, I just posted a new one today that I just found this morning. So there's a brand new picture on there.
Okay, maybe that's the one I saw today. Shannon has her family is the one that has been having the Bigfoot sightings, and she was telling me about a horse, something that was involved with the horse. Do you want to tell her about it, Shannon?
Well, this was during a period of time where they had different experiences with, they never saw him up close and personal, but they just felt it was a Bigfoot. But one morning they woke up and went to their barn and they found their horse dead. They had just automatically decided that he was so frightened, he was trying to get away from something and strangled himself in the process.
Huh. Strangle himself on like a lead rope or something?
Yeah.
Huh. That's very
because
strange.
this was during a time where there weren't any chores done by nighttime. Then they didn't get done because everyone was afraid to go outside. Because this Bigfoot scene, and if it was indeed a Bigfoot, this one, from what Shannon has told me, was angry.
Were you hearing noises at night? Well, this happened to my mother when she was about 12.
Oh.
And it happened during the 60s here in Hillsdale County. Around the time, didn't you tell me, Amy, that we had UFO sightings here?
That was right around the time where there were tons of UFO activity. We were even in Time magazine because college students had reportedly seen a UFO out of their dorm window.
Huh.
And there was just numerous UFO. And I know that you say that, which I find this very fascinating. I find it fascinating that the UFO and the Bigfoot go hand in hand.
Well, they do seem to. There are sightings of them together, and then there's just a lot of coincidences that become too coincidental. Where you have a lot of strange UFO activity right in the same area where you have Bigfoot activity. And it just becomes too much of a stretch to say that it's just coincidence.
Well, go ahead and tell her more, and maybe you can, just let us know if you think this sounds like a Bigfoot, experience. Tell her about the Bigfoot in the cornfield and the Bigfoot knocking someone out and the Bigfoot in the car.
Well, they were out in their garden behind their house working, and it got dark, so they started coming back towards the house to go in for the night, and their dog started growling at their shed, as if something was there that scared them, and then they saw something dart into the woods, something big. And then later on that evening, when it was dark, they saw a dark, huge figure in the cornfield across the street from their house. And there weren't any stumps or any big rocks or anything like that in that cornfield. This is something that was never there. And they were so scared that my grandma sat in her doorway with a gun on her lap, watching it to make sure it didn't come towards the house. Eventually she went to bed, and the next morning it was gone.
Well, there are a lot of sightings reported where people just see a dark shape. So, I mean, it's hard to say for sure, but it certainly could be Bigfoot.
Well, a few days later, my grandmother's boyfriend went outside for something, and he was gone a really long time. And eventually he came back, and he said that something hit him over the head and knocked him out.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a friendly encounter.
But all the encounters that my mom had told me about that happened at this time, they seem very aggressive. which confused me because everything I heard about Bigfoot said that they try and stay away from people, they try and stick to themselves, and I wasn't sure.
Well, her encounters were all back in the 60s?
Yep.
Well, yeah, like 35 years ago, like in the 70s, it seems like there was a change in the behavior, at least the reported behavior of Bigfoot. There used to be reports of them shaking cars and scaring people, and occasionally attacking someone or waving a club at them threateningly. But then things kind of changed.
Yeah, right around that time, Shannon said one of them jumped on a car.
Right.
Was shaking it.
Yeah. Well, there were a lot of reports from that time period like that around the country. So, and then it seems like they changed for some reason. And there haven't been any reports that I've heard about of them shaking cars recently. It seems like it's mostly people see them run across a road in front of them, or run across a trail in the woods in front of them, and it's more chance encounters like that, just a fleeting thing than what it used to be.
Do you think it had to do with us spreading out and more into their territory?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the beginning of that question.
Oh, do you think it had to do more with urbanization and us spreading out more into their territory?
Well, you'd think that would make them more aggressive, but it's really very confusing as to why the behavior changed like that. But it seems to definitely have changed, and that's a mystery.
Well, tell her about the latest, the one in 97, because I'm really interested in this one.
My aunt and uncle in 1997 bought some property that's way back in the woods, surrounded on three sides by a river. So people generally didn't go onto that piece of property unless it was like hunting season or something. It was entirely uninhabited. And after they bought the property, they were going to build on it. But until they built, they put a little camper on there, and periodically would go over there and make a little bonfire and hang out at night. One night, shortly after they bought it, they heard this sound in the woods, and my aunt said that the closest thing she could come to describing it was that it sounded like an elephant with a cold. And it kind of scared them, and then they heard it trampling through the woods, breaking limbs, making lots of noise. And she said that it made that sound about 4 times. It would stop, make the sound. And it scared them so bad that they got in their car and drove away. But they had never encountered it again after that.
Yeah, there's a lot of sightings like that, where things are thrashing around in the woods and people don't get a good look at it, but they hear it.
What is the sound? Is that the sound, like a snorting loud?
Well, there are different sounds reported. Some people hear like a high-pitched scream. Some people hear whooping, and others have heard loud, snarling growls, things like that. So there's a wide range of sounds that people think are associated with Bigfoot.
Have you ever personally seen a Bigfoot?
I got a glimpse of something that might have been one. Not a good look. Last fall, I heard some ravens squawking very loudly and circling above the trees in the woods behind my house. So I went out to look, and I could see a clearing back in the woods. There's this little area, and the sun was shining into the clearing, and just this side of the clearing, there was a dark shape standing there. And as I watched it, turned sideways and went behind a tree. And it was taller than a bear, so it might have been a Bigfoot, but it wasn't a good, clear sighting.
Okay. And why is it that nobody has ever gotten a good sighting of a Bigfoot?
Well, there are people who get them. Not usually Bigfoot researchers, but witnesses report them. Where, it stands there and looks at them for a minute or two, In fact, last summer I had one reported to me where a man was out canoeing on a private lake in the UP, and he saw something on the shore, and he noticed that it was large and hairy, and it was kneeling by the water, drinking water using a concave piece of wood. And then this Bigfoot, it looked at him, and he looked at it, and they looked at each other for 20 or 30 seconds. Then it stood up and walked into the woods. So he got a pretty good look. He was kind of a good distance away, but he got a good long look at it anyway.
And what do you think is a Bigfoot? I was reading in the first, I couldn't get your book in time, but I did read that first chapter that's on the website. What's the name of the website, real quick? Where you buy the book? I don't have it.
Backyardbigfoot.com.
Yeah, Backyard. Yeah, and you have a little teaser chapter on there, and you talk about some people, the history of the evolution of man, but you don't feel that that's what it is.
Right. I have a whole chapter about evolution because I'm not a creationist, but I don't subscribe to the theory of evolution. There are too many problems with it. And when you look at what the ancient hominids looked like, which are the creatures that we were supposed to have evolved from, they look a lot more like descriptions of Bigfoot than they do us. They have brow ridges, pronounced ridges above their eyes, and they have, stocky bodies. And they just look a lot more like the Bigfoot than we do. So I think the Bigfoot are the descendants of those creatures, and we are not.
Okay. So, tell me, I have so many questions. I hope you don't mind, and I hope they're not stupid ones.
No.
Do you feel like, I know there's a lot of people out there researching and doing investigations of Bigfoot. Do you feel like there's a proper way to do an investigation of the Bigfoot?
I don't think there's one right way. I think whatever works for you is the way to do it. I personally don't think big expeditions are going to find much like these ones where they have 40, 50 people going out into the woods. That's going to scare away any wildlife. And if I were a Bigfoot, I wouldn't want to hang around for that.
Oh, are you talking about the Michael Moneymaker one?
Right. Yeah, there's one coming to the UP. I just don't see them finding anything because they've got 50 people tromping around in the woods. And even if they break up into smaller groups, it's still a lot of people walking around with their two-way radios and a bunch of other equipment. And there's just no way they're going to be quiet enough to, trick a Bigfoot into walking in front of them.
Yeah, and where do they go during the day?
Well, people see them in the daytime.
So they just kind of hang out?
Well, they probably walk around, looking for food, hunting deer, because there are sightings where people have seen them hunting deer or eating deer, carrying dead deer. So they're not vegetarians.
They're not.
Though they certainly, I'm sure they eat fruits and nuts and those kind of things too. So
are they a type that mate for life?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Are they a type that mate for life?
Well, nobody knows.
Okay.
There's just a lot we don't know. In fact, there's very little we do know for sure about Bigfoot.
Has anyone ever witnessed a mother and a child Bigfoot?
There have been people who thought they did. In fact, I had a sighting reported to me recently. It happened in the late 80s, but the gentleman just recently reported it where he and his brother saw 3 Bigfoot, and 2 of them were smaller than the other one, so he thought maybe they were 2 juveniles and an adult.
Okay. So are they, what is the word for it? Do they live alone or do they live in packs?
Well, again, we don't know.
Okay.
We can guess, and that's about it. Most of the time people see one at a time, but that doesn't necessarily mean they live alone. It just means when people encounter them, they're alone. But there have been sightings of more than one, so we just don't really know how they live.
Well, I have a caller that has called in and has been on hold. Are you up for taking questions?
Sure.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Who am I speaking with?
This is Nick from Ohio.
Hey, Nick. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. Nice to meet all of you here in the ether, I guess. Had a question for Lisa. Maybe this is something she was planning to talk about later in the segment here. I don't know, but would you be able to tell a little bit about anything that you've learned about the Native American perspective of Bigfoot? What, in other words, what did the Native folk believe about Bigfoot? Did it tend to vary from tribe to tribe or region to region?
Well, the Native Americans all over the country have legends of Bigfoot-like creatures, but each tribe has its own stories about it and its own beliefs. Some of them think that the Bigfoot are some kind of spirit being, not entirely physical, but others think they are physical beings. So it varies a lot, but there are widespread stories about them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're depicted in the ancient artwork of the native people.
Had you ever done any research as to what the tribes in Michigan or Great Lakes area in particular had believed about Bigfoot?
No, that hasn't been a focus of my research personally.
I see.
But Lisa, didn't you say in your blog that there is brochures from early settlers that talk about the Bigfoot?
Well, yeah, there are. In my book, I talk about an old 17th century pamphlet from England that talks about tall, hairy creatures that were seen in the Pacific Islands. And there are old stories from this continent, too. There's a lot of stories going back thousands of years about hairy creatures that walk upright like people.
And that are really tall.
Not always really tall.
Oh, really?
There are some that are short, some that are tall, some that are human-sized. So they come in all shapes and sizes, just like people.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, did you have any other questions, Nick?
Well, I could dig up a ton of them, but I don't want to derail the agenda here. I guess maybe one other that I would ask real quick. Have you ever come across any accounts of Bigfoot or Bigfoot-like creatures exhibiting, I guess, what might be called sort of paranormal or paraphysical type activities, such as vanishing or levitating or doing like a Mothman thing, or have all of the accounts that you've cataloged, pretty much comply to what a physical, big, hairy fellow would be doing?
Well, I haven't personally investigated a sighting where the witness said the Bigfoot disappeared, although there are a lot of sightings like that in the literature. I did have one where a woman and her friend were driving home one night, and she hit a white Bigfoot. And then when they got to their next stop, they discovered they had 90 minutes of missing time. So that adds a strange aspect to it. She didn't know quite what that meant, and I'm not sure I know what it means, but it's an interesting correlation with UFOs.
That's a real mixed bag there.
Yeah.
That does go hand in hand with the UFO theory.
Right, because with UFOs, we have a lot of cases of missing time. In fact, that happened to me once after I saw a UFO.
Oh, interesting. That's in your book, too, UFO and
right,
like that, right?
Right, that was in Texas. I saw a UFO. My mother and I saw it. A UFO with 6 huge lights on it, or else it was 6 individual objects. And we stopped to look at it, and we thought we sat there for a minute or two, and we got home and realized we had some missing time, like about 20 minutes worth.
Did you have any of those strange burns that they say sometimes come with the light?
No, we didn't have anything like that.
Okay.
We just had this time that we couldn't account for. And we felt very lethargic afterwards for several days. But we didn't have any other physical symptoms.
Huh.
That is interesting.
That is.
Well, that's all I had, other than just to also extend a compliment to you, Lisa. I think you've got a great website. I think you're doing some great research, and it's refreshingly different, I guess, from some of the, shall we say, some of the Bigfoot hunters here in Ohio who, to be sure, there's some good ones down here too, but there's also a few that I think kind of have the attitude, let's go beer up and go shoot us a skunk ape or something. Which in the words of William Shatner, I can't get behind that.
Well,
that's great.
The sighting I told you about with the missing time, that was in Ohio.
Oh, really?
Right.
Oh.
Okay.
Well, Nick was the one that passed on your link. We had been talking about, because that expedition that's coming up there this month kind of flew around the internet, and Nick did a little more research, and he found you, and he knew you'd be perfect for us, since we promote women in the paranormal. So he was actually the one that turned us on to you.
Oh, well, thank you.
Well, you're welcome. It's all good.
Well, thanks, Nick.
Okay, you're welcome. Thanks. Have a nice evening.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Lisa, I read in some of your blogs about sexism in the Bigfoot field, and I kind of wanted to touch on that.
Well, it's a controversial topic.
I know.
I've been told I shouldn't talk about it because I'm damaging the credibility of Bigfoot research.
Oh, no.
But I've mainly gotten positive feedback from people.
Okay.
It's something that doesn't get talked about a lot. But I've had male Bigfoot researchers. One told me that women don't like to get into Bigfoot research because they're afraid to go in the woods.
Yeah.
Just ridiculous things like that. And then there's just kind of more subtle aspects of it, like I get some nasty comments on my blog, and you don't see those kind of nasty comments on the men's blogs. At least I haven't seen it. So it kind of makes me wonder, if I were a man, would they really be calling me those names?
Yeah, would they really be calling another man those types of names for doing the research that they're doing? Right.
And then there's the television aspect, where on documentaries, you don't see women talking about Bigfoot. You see men. They got to have the big men in their camouflage outfits out in the woods, and they just don't talk to women about it.
Well, that's what I'm finding a lot about in the paranormal field, period. But I know you said that in the Bigfoot paranormal field, it's even worse. But it just seems like you see a lot of men running groups and, being filmed, and, and the women are in the background doing the secretarial duties and, those type of things. But there are some outstanding women out there that are doing phenomenal things in the paranormal field that I think should be recognized.
Right. There are women in Bigfoot research, but they just don't get the attention that the men get.
Well, we'll see if we can change that. So I was reading also on your blog, which I thought this was really interesting. It was the 4 or 5 things that are controversial in the Bigfoot research?
All right, I did the top 5 controversies in Bigfoot research, yeah.
You had sexism on there.
Right.
And then there was the belief.
Right, because a lot of Bigfoot researchers don't want to say they believe anything. They don't even want to say they believe witnesses. They think the word belief is bad, and you shouldn't use it. They seem to think belief always means blind belief, or like zealotry. But belief just means that you've looked at the evidence and you're convinced that this is true or correct. Mm-hmm. And so I think they just don't understand what the word means, and it's become kind of the cool thing to say, well, I don't believe anything. I don't believe in Bigfoot. Well, it's just kind of silly.
Well, that's the same with ghost hunting, the debunking, like, let's go in and I don't believe anything until it's proven to me,
Right. Well, belief in its most general sense, in the common sense, is just looking at the evidence and deciding that you are convinced by it, that you believe this. Mm-hmm. So it's nothing to be afraid of, and it's kind of silly to say that you don't want to believe anything.
And then the next one you had was the word paranormal.
Yes. That's the dirty word. You don't want to say that. Yeah, people tend to get very upset about that.
And why is that?
Again, I think mainly because they don't understand what the word means. Paranormal just means that it can't be explained by science at this point, which is true of Bigfoot. Whether you think it's a giant ape or it's an alien from Jupiter, science can't explain how it can exist. So something like that is just not supposed to be there. Even if it's a giant ape walking up on 2 feet, they're not supposed to be doing that.
Yeah, it's not abnormal. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Right. And paranormal, encompasses a wide variety of phenomena, but it doesn't mean that it's a shape-shifting alien necessarily. It can, but if it's a giant ape, it's paranormal too. But there's a big divide in Bigfoot research about one camp says they're flesh and blood, they're just apes. That's all. And other people say, well, it's paranormal. And they have a lot of bickering and infighting between the two that gets pretty nasty at times.
Well, isn't the Bigfoot considered part of is it cryptozoology?
Right.
Yeah, and that includes the Mothman, the werewolves, the vampires.
Right. It includes any
the ghosts.
Animals that are not part of the accepted scientific order of things.
Yeah. Okay, so the next one, number 2, is repeated witnesses.
Right. That's
possible.
Right. Witnesses who say that they have seen Bigfoot on more than one occasion, especially people who say that they have ongoing encounters on their homestead. Because that.
Now, why wouldn't that be possible if the Bigfoot lives on your homestead?
Right. Well, of course it could be possible, and I've talked to people who have had more than one encounter, whether on their property where they live or when they're out in the woods. But for some reason, most Bigfoot researchers don't even want to think about that. They say, oh, these people are just crazy. They can't see Bigfoot more than once. Bigfoot wouldn't come and visit them every day. But I said, why not? If they're living in the same area and they know these people are not going to attack them, then why couldn't they come and see them? Come back.
Like the one that leaves your sticks thing.
Right. But that's one of the big controversies, is people who say they've seen Bigfoot more than once. Because it's become the thing now where it's only supposed to be a fleeting chance encounter, not repeated encounters. Unless you're a Bigfoot researcher, then you can say you see Bigfoot every time you go in the woods.
Because these people that are going up, I read that there is not one of them that has not seen a Bigfoot, they said.
Right, that's what they say. They also say they have audio recordings and video tapes, but they won't show them to anybody.
Oh. Top secret stuff, huh? You're so funny.
Well, you have to have, and that would explain why you'll see there'll be a rash of sightings in an area, and then it just kind of stops.
Okay.
Because maybe the Bigfoot aren't there anymore. That also goes along with something I talked about in my book, which is animals that are supposed to be extinct, and they appear again. And in fact, I have some pictures in there. There's one of a red wolf that I got on my game camera in Texas, and red wolves are supposed to be extinct in Texas. In fact, they're supposed to be extinct just about everywhere. They're just some in captivity, and they bred some and released them. I think it was in Minnesota. But so they're not supposed to be anywhere else, but they reappeared because I got one on my game camera in Texas. And I think it could be the same thing where they're getting dropped off by the UFOs.
Oh.
That would kind of explain something that has been happening for millions of years, where there'll be a species, it'll be around for a while, and then it'll disappear from the fossil record, be gone for millions of years, and then it just reappears again. And they call those Lazarus species. And one of the mysteries of the fossil record is how this happens. Of course, it would be explained if we said, well, there's some people in UFOs playing around with genetics, trying to to bring back species that went extinct, and then they drop them off, and there they are again.
Or could, like that shark that they just found, that, like a bot that, I forget what the name of that shark was, but they thought it was extinct and then it just reappeared lately.
Right, yeah, there's a number of cases where that has happened. They thought something was extinct, and it wasn't.
So Shannon, do you have any questions? I've been monopolizing the conversation.
Well, I am curious, Lisa, as when you first started getting involved in Bigfoot research and what caused you to do that?
Well, I've been interested in strange things for a long time. I had my first UFO sighting when I was about 14. Then after that, I just started getting more interested in weird things. When I was in college, I started getting interested in alternative history, too. So it just kind of built up for a long time until I finally started researching these things actively. About 6 years ago is when I really started researching Bigfoot and evolution intensively. So I've been pretty much active with it since then.
What is alternative history?
That's things like, are the pyramids of humor in this field?
Yeah. And then the final one you have is UFOs and high strangeness.
Right. That's even worse than the word paranormal.
Yeah.
They get even nastier if you talk about this. Because
That's the one that
they want Bigfoot to be just a giant ape, or something like that, where it's just an animal. It's not anything more sophisticated. It's nothing that rivals us in intelligence or anything like that. So if you say it has something to do with UFOs, then it just becomes too strange, and they don't want to even talk about it.
Have there ever been, oh no, I'm derailing myself. I want to talk about the UFO for a second. Now, UFO phenomenon, this is something new. I didn't know that UFOs went hand in hand with Bigfoot. And I always say that, like, there's two things that kind of frighten me in the paranormal field, and that's the UFO and the shadow figures. And I'm wondering if the shadow figures couldn't be connected somehow to the Bigfoot. I know I'm stretching really far, but what do you think?
Connected to Bigfoot? Or?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, anything's possible. And there's just so much we don't know that you can say, just make a connection between just about anything that's as likely as anything else.
Yeah, because with seeing something, a big shadow figure in the field, I mean, well, I guess it's just probably a shadow of a large figure, and shadow figures are more things that you see in your house.
Right, yeah.
With the UFO connection, what do you think is the connection? Do you think it's just another form of alien, or that the UFOs are studying the Bigfoot?
Well, I think that it kind of goes in with the disappearing Bigfoot and things like that, where there are footprint tracks that just disappear, just end with no explanation of where the creature went, and the Bigfoot that just disappear in front of the witness. If they are associated with UFOs, and maybe they fly the UFOs, maybe they're just the pets of whoever flies them, but they could be dropping them off and bringing them back, taking thousands of years older than they say they are. Have there been lost civilizations that had advanced technology and then disappeared? Anything that is contrary to the mainstream story of world history.
And where did you study that?
Oh, I just started reading books. When I was in college, I took history classes, and some of the stuff just didn't make sense to me. So I started reading other books with other perspectives, and eventually I read Forbidden Archaeology, which is a great book, all about how there's all this evidence that human beings have been around for millions of years. And so I read more books like that, and it really struck a chord with me. It made more sense than what I heard in college.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a master's, right?
Right, I have a master's in library science.
And are you a full-time author, or do you have a day job?
I used to have a day job, but now I'm mostly a writer, and I do some editing and things like that too.
That's wonderful. So what books do you have in the works other than I know you have The Strange Michigan. Do you have anything else in the works?
Right, well, I'm going to do several sequels to Backyard Bigfoot. I was going to do one big book with everything in it like the first one. Then I decided I would kind of separate out the topics and do individual smaller books, so there'll be several of those. I'm probably going to do a book of the best things from my blog.
Your blog is really wonderful.
Thank you. And I also write novels, so sometime I'm going to write a third one in my Human Origins series. So I'm doing a lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff. I did see in your blog that you're looking for The Strange Michigan people to contact you and Linda.
Right. We're looking for weird stories. Anything strange about Michigan.
Anything strange? Like what kind of strange stuff?
Well, Linda has come up with some categories for the book. Campfire tales, graveyard lore, freaky fauna, which would be things like Bigfoot and other weird creatures, haunted places, unconventional people, weird architecture and art, puzzles of the past, which would be like ancient mysteries, things like that, and other eerie things. Basically anything that's unique and different about Michigan. Or creepy.
If anybody wants to get your book, The Backyard Bigfoot, how do they do that? Just go back to the backyardbigfoot.com.
You can go there. You can go to Amazon.com, or you can see if your local bookstore might have it.
Yeah,
if you order it at backyardbigfoot.com, I can sign it for you.
Yeah, that's what Lisa told me today. I get a signed book. I'm like, heck yeah, I'd rather have that. All right. I forgot to ask you this question while we were talking about Bigfoot. When I was doing research on the Wendigo, I was really surprised to learn that there's a large werewolf and Bigfoot sightings in the state of Michigan. Where around in Michigan would you say is the largest sighting area of the Bigfoot?
Bigfoot? They've been all over the place. There was a wave of sightings in the Thumb area back in the 60s. But I've had reports from all over the state. So any place there's woods where there aren't a lot of people, where it's a good place for an animal to hide.
Would you say there's a state in the United States that has more sightings than others?
Well, it'll probably be the Pacific Northwest. That seems to be the biggest place for sightings. I don't know if it's just that people there report them more often or if they really are just more of them there, but they seem to have the most sightings in this country. But there are also a lot from other states, too, and a lot in the South. So.
Are there a lot from other countries?
Oh, yeah, there's sightings from other countries, yeah. Bigfoot-like creatures of different sizes they seem to exist all over the world.
Have you been all over the world in researching them? Or
No, I haven't gone all over the world.
Oh.
I do my traveling mostly through books.
Oh.
Not feasible at this point to go flying all over the world. That would be nice.
Well, you mentioned in the email today that you had some flesh sightings that you wanted to share with us.
Right, I've had quite a few reported in the last few weeks. I had one that just happened on June 23rd here in the UP near Lomps, which is not too far from Marquette. A man was driving home down the highway and he saw a large upright figure move onto the road in front of him, and as he got closer, he thought it was standing upright on two legs, and it wasn't a bear, and then it ran across the road. So he didn't think it was a bear because it moved pretty fast.
And its arms moved?
He didn't get a good look at the arms, but he was pretty sure it wasn't a bear. And he was really shaken up about it. Wasn't even sure he wanted to report it, but he came across my website and did.
Okay. And has anything else happened recently?
The other ones have been reported recently, but didn't happen as fresh as that one. Just had one reported from Iron River. It happened in 1990, where a man was in his hunting blind and he heard something walking around below him. So he went down to check it out and saw something walking in the trees, and it was taller than him, and he said he's 6'2", so it had to have been pretty large.
It was walking in the trees?
Yeah, walking around in the trees.
Oh, okay.
And so he didn't get a good look at it, but he said it was very tall. And then it went off into the woods.
Has there ever been any reported Bigfoot attacks?
There were some, but not in recent times. It's mostly from like the 1800s, some stories of Bigfoot attacking people. But it's not a real prevalent thing. There haven't been any like that recently. It's, again, part of that change in behavior that seems to have happened about 30 years ago.
Well, when I did this story on the Wendigo, it did say that oftentimes they would confuse the Wendigo with the Bigfoot because Bigfoot usually wouldn't attack, but the Wendigo does. And so they thought maybe they were confusing the Bigfoot with the Wendigo.
Well, maybe. If people don't get a good look at whatever it is, they could confuse one thing for another.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Shannon? Any more questions?
Well, I'm just intrigued that she has regular contact with the ones in her area. Do you think they know that they're being researched?
I don't know, maybe. They know I make signs for them. And if they're hanging out in the woods, maybe they see me taking pictures of the signs.
Do you have any pictures of those signs that you've been making?
Oh, yeah, there's pictures in the book, lots of stick sign pictures.
Okay.
So, yeah, and there's some on my website. I've got even more I've collected since I did the book. So.
And so you've taken pictures of the signs you've made and then the responses to your signs?
Right, yeah.
That's interesting. Do you think they have a thought process other, than like eat, food, sleep, water, hunt, or do you think they have?
I think they're as intelligent as people.
Okay.
I've also found what look like stone tools, the ancient stone tools that the ancient hominids used to make. I've found some of those in the same areas where I find stick signs. And these aren't rocks that were just laying around or were rooted up out of the ground. They came from somewhere else and just appeared. And they look just like the ancient stone tools. So I think they have tools, and they're intelligent enough to make these signs and to respond to the ones I make. So I think they're quite smart and probably as intelligent as people.
And do they have a vocabulary?
They could. I mean, just because they don't talk the way we do doesn't mean that they don't have a language.
Uh-huh.
Is that normal? Does that happen often where they find examples of their habitat?
Well, some people have found areas of matted down grass and things that they think are beds. And then other people think they sleep in caves. So people think they have seen places where they laid down, but again, we don't know for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But it would seem likely that they have some kind of shelter for when it's raining or some other inclement weather.
I just think it's odd that nobody's ever gotten a good picture of a Bigfoot. Except those people that say they do but aren't sharing them.
Right. Well, the best video we have is from 1967. It seems, I don't know if they're just being more careful since then. Roger Patterson got his film of them, and then they said, oops, we better not do that anymore. They'll get a good photo of us now. So they stay farther away.
That one where they show that I've seen it all over the place where, it's a very clear picture and it's walking and it's moving its arms and it's furry.
Right.
That's a fake?
No, I don't think it's fake. It's been examined by anatomists and other experts and even special effects experts have looked at it and said that in 1967 they did not have the technology to create a suit that looks that realistic.
Yeah, that's a great video.
Yeah, it is, and it's very convincing to me.
Very. And if the word was out that he let himself get on video like that, he probably did get in trouble.
He probably got grounded.
What were you thinking? Okay, Lisa, let's give out all your information so that if anybody wants to contact you, they can do that. If they want you to get your book, they can go to www.backyardbigfoot.com.
Or they can go to Amazon.com.
Or Amazon.com. But if they want a signed autograph,
then they got to get it from me.
And if anybody has any sightings of a Bigfoot, what should they do?
They can go to report.upbigfoot.com.
Okay.
Or they can email sightings@upbigfoot.com.
Okay. And if they have anything for your Strange Michigan book, who should they contact?
They can also go to report.upbigfoot.com and fill out the form, or they can email me, lisa@upbigfoot.com, or they can go to Linda's website, weirdmichigan.com, and contact her.
Okay. Is there any other things any places that you want to be contacted, or is that good?
Well, they can go to my blog, bigfootquest.com, and leave comments if there's something that interests them on there.
Yeah, that's a really interesting blog. I haven't even gotten halfway through that. And there's some, I wanted to comment, but I didn't want to comment before we spoke.
Well, I welcome comments, but if you call me a foul name, I'll delete it. Other than that, you can pretty much say whatever you want.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Lisa, for being on the show. We appreciate it so much.
Well, thank you. It was a lot of fun.
We hope that you might even come back.
Oh, sure.
Okay, thanks. Bye, Lisa.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, she's so interesting, isn't she?
Yes.
Wow. I hope we got all the questions, and I had so many that I jumped around a little bit too much there.
Sorry about that, you guys. My little dog came alive right at the end, and it was time for her medication, and she screamed right into the microphone. So I'm so sorry about that. And I'm also sorry about the beginning. It'll take me about a day to edit it out. So if you're watching it before the edit, I'm so sorry. And if you're watching it after the edit, what issues? There's no issues here. Nothing to see. So thank you so much for being here. This is day 17 of LIVEmas. Tomorrow we'll be back with our true crime content. Until then, I want you to know this. I love you and I appreciate you. Please give this live a thumbs up and please consider subscribing. The little bird got free. I love you guys.